Good evening, everyone. Jo Curtis here. I'm just having I've got an extra long earring. At least it didn't pull my hearing aid out this time. All right, so we're about to get going. Oh, there we go. That's gone. Good to see you all. I'm a member of the club, and tonight Pardon? Oh, great. Thanks, Denise. So tonight we've got a full program, and I'll be MC to introduce it to you. So tonight I've got a couple of notices. We've got an AV, and then we've got the results of the print competition. You definitely don't see the prints along the wall that you normally see because there's been a bit of a hiccup and they haven't arrived back. So we're going to have the judges' comments with the PI that always goes with that as we enter. So a good reason why we have a PI as well. So before we get started, please turn your phones off. Have we got any visitors this evening? So we all know each other, and we're all good to go. Good evening, you guys at home. Glad you're clocking in with us. So the results, we've got results first, then we've got, that's with the notices. I've got to tell you a little bit about a few competitions that are coming up, both nationally and here. And then I'll introduce Brian, who's a fairly new member of our club. He's going to introduce an AV that he's made that we'll watch. And then John Hawkins is going to introduce their PI. And I see we have Nicola as a reader tonight. Thank you. Thanks for coming in. So let's get on to tonight's outline. We have got the results of the Creative Focus competition, that national salon, are out, and I do see a few CPS names in the video. So I'd like you, when you do get home, to have 50 minutes to look at an AV that the guys at Creative Focus have put together. Congratulations to everybody who took part in that. The quality and the variation of images is just incredible. You'll love to look at it. You just need to go to YouTube, punch in Creative Focus 2022, and it will come up. 50 minutes of creative images to look at. Who here tonight put entries into that competition? Ah, excellent. Good. So, Nicola, you did too or not? Not this time. Well, Jane, I know you did really well with a few awards. And awards here as well? Yes, good. And this year, not surprisingly, if you know Helen's work, Helen McLeod's scooped the pool, and she got a few awards as well as the Supreme Image Award. So do look at that YouTube AV when you can. It's certainly inspiring. The other one I want to talk about is NZIPP, but Brian's going to talk about that in depth, so I'll leave that one for now. So the promotion to other salons that are happening, the National Triptych, which is a triptych that the Nelson Club puts together, that closes on August the 31st. So you haven't got long to complete your triptychs and send them in. You are allowed to send in 6. There's a fee to subscribe to that, and you can also buy a booklet, which is great for inspiration for the following year. And of course, we have our own set challenge coming up. That's going to be, I didn't write the date down, but it's sometime in September. Are you here, Ian? Hannon's 28th of September, so if you've got that set challenge underway, I know he's spoken about it a few times, and I'm sure you've got it all sorted. If there are any questions, just write to the committee and they'll let you know. So tonight we've got the open print after we have this AV of the NZIPP that Brian's put together. So are you here, Brian? Come up and introduce it, please.
G'day, my name's Brian Haberl. Thank you for the warm welcome for my wife Kelly and I joining the club as new members over the last month or so. It's been fantastic. We've really enjoyed coming to the evenings. We've both been studying through the SIT digital photography. Kelly's just started this year and working really hard at her Photoshop, and I've been going for about a year or so. And my last two papers, one of them suggested it was more of a commercial paper that I should join the NZIPP, mainly for model releases and some of the legalities if you're going to become a professional photographer. And about the day after I entered, it said the IRIS Awards are closing in about 3 days, so I chucked in the entry as a student. So did Kelly and a bunch of other students from other organizations. And then we turn up and find out that Mike is a member, and so is Paul Williams. So Mike had put in 10 photos at the competition, and all of his 10 photos scored really well. And he's a very humble man and a very special man, and I made this video for you, Mike.
Made it for Mike. Let's watch it.
I left my job, I lost my car and my home. I'm leaving for a destination I still don't know. Somewhere nobody must have beauty at all. And if you like that, you can follow me. So let's go. Follow me. And let's go to the place where we belong and leave our trouble now. Come with me. We can go to the paradise of love, enjoy a destination unknown. Now I won't feel those heavy shoulders no more. My life got better, now I finally enjoy. Yes, all the people wanna come here and so. Come on and join us, you can do that now. Let's go. Follow me. And let's go to the place where we belong and leave our trouble down. Come with me. We can go to a paradise of love and joy.
Welcome to the 2022 New Zealand Photo Show, proudly brought to you by the NZIPP in partnership with Canon.
Destination unknown. Destination unknown. Follow me. And let's go. Destination unknown. Follow me. And let's go. Destination unknown. Yeah. Destination unknown, no,
It was so wonderful to see what you've done and you there. I felt like I was there as well. Great, great resume of what happened, Brian. Thank you. Great to see you're making AVs. We could do with another one in the club making AVs. Good on you. And back to Mike. Congratulations again. Having another award like that is just something really special, isn't it? And fantastic that your wonderful work is being recognised. So now we're moving on to the next part of the program, and I'll ask John if you'd like to come up and introduce the judge who is not here tonight, but we're going to do well without him. We've got his comments, and thanks, Nicola, for reading them.
Yes, unfortunately, Rachel is unable to present tonight because she's ill, and she did have a bit of a problem getting the prints, obviously. Murray Cave, Dr. Murray Cave was the judge for the prints. He's got on FPSNZ. And as mentioned, he's unfortunately, our judge was had a family member become seriously unwell in hospital, so was unable to return the prints on time. So he's been asked to accept his apologies, but they will become available soon. Murray enjoys wildlife, action, photojournalism, creative blurry photography. He is, when he is not taking photographs, he's a geologist by training and works primarily in the oil and gas industry and environmental sectors. Murray is now based in Gisborne as a principal scientist for the Gisborne District Council. Murray is a member of the PSNZ, the Nature Photographic Society of New Zealand, the Greymouth Photograph Club, the Kapiti Camera Club, and he is an accredited PSNZ photographic judge. And he has also been the president of the Photographic Society of New Zealand in the past. There were 32 entries in tonight's competition. We get 1 Best in Show, 5 honours, 7 high acceptances, and 14 acceptance, which is a total of 84%. I'll hand it over to Nicola.
Yep, that's better. Score 2, partial lunar eclipse rising into belt of Venus. Nice tones, but the moon gets a bit lost in the image. Overall, I felt it needed a little bit more to bring the image to life. West Coast beach evening. The composition is good, with the leading lines to the rocky outcrop at the top. Overall, however, I felt the image lacked spark, and in this case, the white spot middle top was distracting. Low tide. Lots of potential with this shot, and it could have done well if the contrast between the light-coloured rock in the middle and the surrounding rocks was greater. Compositionally, I felt the portrait format didn't work well, as a landscape orientation would have. I initially thought that the 3D effect was intentional, and perhaps it was, but ultimately it didn't align with the rocks themselves, and so came down to a print that wasn't flat in the frame. The elephant's trunk. This image had a lot of potential, but what happened to the girl's legs? Alexandrina Dawn. Lovely colour and a nice composition. Let down by the excessive noise. Needed a tripod and a slow shutter speed with low ISO. Then it would have been stunning. Score 3, first of the acceptances. Light in the hills. Again, a lot of potential here, but let down by a bit of flat lighting and a lack of real central point of focus. Contented. Nice portrait of this cat and an appropriate title. Cats seem to be either contented or crazy, and I know which I prefer. Technically well handled with good colour. Early morning reflections, a pleasing landscape that's been well handled, but it lacks a bit of that extra that such images needed to really succeed. Janie Seddon, good colour and well exposed overall shot of the shipwreck. It felt a bit confined compositionally though, and I kept wanting to see the wreck in a bit more context. Early morning, classic view of the Church of Tekapo with lovely light. I liked the way the image was framed and it showed good technical skills and good colour. Cormorant on reflected piles. Nice image of this little shag resting up. Nice still water and good colour. Keep wondering if the shag was actually a distraction and the real story was in the piles and the still water instead. Working hands. I liked this image, although such as this are becoming a little bit of a cliche these days. As a print, it comes across as being a bit flat, and a small amount of playing with contrast or subtle vignette would have added a bit of extra punch. Paradise duck stretching wings. Technically proficient view of this paradise duck flapping its wings. Would have liked to have seen a bit more of its natural habitat, even though I know it's there of its own volition. A bit more room in from of the bird would, a bit more room, and I think it means in front of the bird, would provide better balance. Cubism in the Catlins. I'm always a sucker for images in the Catlins, and I'm guessing this is down at the Cathedral Caves. The tones are neutral, and I suspect a bit of monochromatic processing would really bring this image to life. Defiant. Typically cheeky kid, well handled overall, and the dark background suits the image. When viewing repeatedly, something keeps niggling, and ultimately I decided that the crop on the right was a bit too tight and there needed to be a tad bit more room for the ear and the edge of the frame. Leap forward. Nice pose and good colour with this fantail taking off. Reasonably sharp, but possibly a bit over sharpened as the feather structure seems a bit off. Hidden from prying eyes, a shot with potential, although the lighting is not flattering flattering on the model, the main issue I see is that the model does not look comfortable or relaxed, and that detracts from the image. Rock outcrop at Poolburn Dam. Nicely seen image of this tour, and I like the way the rock formation is mirrored in the cloud. Would have been improved with greater tonal range. Dawn silhouette. Nice colour and quite structural in form. Some might argue about the bird at the left being distracting, but I think it helps make the image comes to life. Score 4. Autumn colours, Lake Ruataniwha. Great image and sharp, front and back. The gold tones, metallic paper make it stand out. A great effort. Forest green. Lovely image, and I like the treatment which focuses the attention of the one frond. Lovely colour and a nice muted background with just enough interest to keep the viewer interested. Jet number 54. Excellent photojournalism shot. Good colour, overall well exposed and sharp enough, a bit too central and too tightly cropped. Tumbleweed. I liked the ethereal feel of this image. Nicely creative with a good balance and muted tones. Worked well. Lake Camp. A nice serene winter scene. Overall a good composition and the crop suits the image. I'd be tempted to punch the autumnal colours a bit to give the image more punch. Angel wings. I really liked this image, well balanced, and it sits in the frame just right. I think it's one of those images that can stand repeated viewing, and it's an image to be proud of. Score 4, Frozen. A shot that the author can be rightly pleased with. Good colour balance and a nice composition. Score 5, Freshly Picked. Stunning, painterly image of this floral arrangement. Pretty much perfect. Bridal Dress. Classic slow shutter speed waterfall shot, and they almost work out well. And they almost always work out well. A good vignette effect helps bring out the image, and the muted greens of the foliage adds to the balance. I've seen the exposure time held a bit too long, gives a distracting white at the bottom of the waterfall, but it's handled just right here. I was curious as to the location of this image. Frost, Loke Cameron. I was curious as to the location of this image, as it looks very similar to the Lake Minnewanki in the Canadian Rockies. Anyway, nicely composed image with good balance, and the reflection of the willow and poplar branches in the water really add to the balance. Surreal Snowdrops. I really liked this, and it was an image I debated over a lot. Great composition, and the dark background is just right. Great overall colour, but the speckles of bright at the base was a bit distracting at the end, in the end. Golden Poplars. Well handled use of either camera motion of the linear blur tools in post to give this image a strong structure supported by the colour palette and overall sense of sharpness. Well done. And score 6, Translucence. Stunning. The translucent glow really makes the image stand out. Enough said.
Diana's going to join me, I think. Okay, our first acceptance is Light in the Hills by N. Walls. Then we have Contented by Alicia Hebden, not here tonight. And Early Morning Reflections by Diana Andrews. Let's get a handshake. Next one is Janie Seddon by Jan Boo. Ah, yes, there's another. The next one is Early Morning by John McCall. And next one we have is the Cormorant on Reflected Piles, once again by Jan Boo. Now we have Working Hands by Alistair Phillips. Next we have Paradise Duck Stretching Wings by Anne Yuan. And we have Cubism in the Catlins by Tara Kalsell. Yes. And Defiant by Alistair Phillips again. And the next one is A Leap Forward by JKQ. He's here. And Hidden from Prying Eyes by Alicia Hebden. And we have Rock Outcrop at Paul Boone Dam by Stuart Clock. Oops. And we have A Dawn Silhouette by Dawn Kirk. Then we have The Autumn Colours at Lake Ruataniwha by Paul Williams. Paul's not here. Right. And we have Forest Green by Ann Walls. Sorry, we're on the high acceptances. Sorry, I missed. And next we have The Jet number 54 by Ann Yuan. And now we have The Tumbleweed by Kelly Habrill. Yeah. You did right. Lake Camp, also by Kelly. and Angel Wings by Dawn Kirk. And we have Frozen by Jane Barnes. Now we move on to the honours. First one is Freshly Picked by Diane Kelsey. Not here tonight. And Bridal Dress by JKQ. I can tell you that JK and I went to this site near Queenstown and he told me I had to go to the top of the waterfall and remove the sticks so he could take the photograph. The next one is Frost Loch Cameron by Mike White. Yes, I think a lot of people would have seen this when they're on the Laurie Thomas. It's a lovely little spot. The next one is Surreal Snowdrops by Jane Barnes. And now we have The Golden Poplars by Diane Kelsey. And Honours and Best in Show is Translucence by Tara Colesole. Thank you, everybody. I'll pass back to Joe.
Thank you. You guys on projection, are you able to go back and we'll ask a few people about the images? So leave that one there. Would you like to talk? No, you probably wouldn't like to, but please come up and talk about your image. How wonderful. Here you go. Tell us a little bit about it.
Thank you. Okay, so what I did was, it was actually on a light box. I put the flowers flat on a light box with some white paper on it because the light box has got grids on it. And then I put, the whole room was dark, and then I just took the photo with my normal lens, actually. Yeah, and they came out quite nicely. It was actually just by accident I tried it. There was nothing else there to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing that. So it's wonderful what can happen with an experiment. Thank you. What was the next one? Jane. Anyone know how this was done? Oh, Jane, tell us a little bit about it.
This was no accident. This was after Don Komarichka's talk, and I got inspired again. Yes! So it's done with UV light. So I went shopping at Oderings and bought plants that looked like they might refract light or fluoresce light, and it did. So snowdrops in UV light, and that's the spots down the bottom is actually a rock that's fluorescing as well. So that's what it's all about.
Oh, fascinating. Isn't that amazing? When you had that, the little plant there, could you actually see the fluorescence, or was it on the sensor? You can actually see that when you're taking the image. Cool. All right. The question was it a macro lens?
I don't think so. Sorry, I don't think the flowers were macro, were they? I don't think so. Might have been, but I don't think so. And this one was taken on the roof of my car in Christchurch before we went to Twizel. And that's the only place I managed to get them to freeze, really, is on the roof of my car. The light is from a stage light type thing that I have on a light stand with an electric cord running out of the house to change, and it just changes colour, so it happens. Oh, sorry, it's a bubble. No, it's a bubble. It's a bubble that I blew and then it froze. So. No, it's a special formula that I'm quite happy to give to anyone who wants it, but also Don Komarichka. That's where I got it from. But to his mixture, I add 2 tablespoons of water. I can't remember exactly what his mixture is, except that it's water and detergent and corn syrup, but we don't have corn syrup here, so I've used glucose syrup, which is in the baking aisle at the supermarket. And but I add 2 tablespoons of sugar because I read somewhere else that it's the sugar crystals that are doing the freezing. I blow it with a straw, yeah, and I blow it with a straw onto the surface, so it sort of comes up from the surface. And I make them that size because it just seems to be best for me.
That's a huge bubble, that size, Jane. I tried this recently, and I went up to a hut at 600 meters, 600 feet above sea level, and it was freezing cold, and there were icicles everywhere. And using the formula that Jane has, and I still didn't get them. I blew lots of bubbles, and I actually sucked some of that bubble mixture up, which tastes disgusting. And I thought, really? But I will try it again because they are beautiful, aren't they? And standing there watching those crystals form must be so enlightening. And also really still, no breeze. So have a go at that. Love to see your results as well. Whose image comes up next? Mike. Shall I come round here?
That's good. That's about the photo. I don't go to quite so much effort to get frost. I just wait for it. So this is rime ice, or hoarfrost as everyone seems to call it. But rime ice in the fog in Twizel in early winter. So it was before Laurie Thomas. So it was just one of those days where the fog set in, so I headed down to Twizel. The next morning it was looking nice. So I went exploring and found a few locations. This was one of them. Loch Cameron, for those of you who aren't sure, it's up the back of Twizel, near the canals. And it was just one of those short-lived frosts that only lasted a couple of days, and the next day was even frostier than this, but it only lasted till lunchtime, and the nor'wester came along and blew it all away. So you've just got to be there at the right place at the right time. Settings, just a standard landscape shot, 50mm f11. It's probably about 1/60th of a second. And that's about it.
Thank you, Mike. Right place, right time. Beautiful. JK's here. Oh, over the side. Here you are.
Yeah. We went to the PSNZ workshop in July. And after that, we have a few days, going around Queenstown. And John and I went and looked for a waterfall that was told by Megan, the instructor of the workshop. And yeah, so we went to the Queenstown Lookout Point, car park there, and walk across to the other side, the 1 Mile Creek, I think 1 Mile Creek, yeah, and and walk up to the track, and then we lost our way. So we went quite far from the waterfall, and then we have to come back and go through a place. They said, do not pass this point. Yeah, so go go in at your own risk, sort of thing. Yeah, yeah, and we scrambled down to the bottom of this waterfall, and I took this picture. I'm not sure whether that was after John removed some of the twig up there. Was it before or after? I am not sure. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's a 1 second exposure with f/16. Yeah.
So, JK, did you have your tripod in the water? Yeah. Yes, yeah. I can see you're going to have to go back and shift those sticks at the top, at the very top. Yes. Are there any more there? Oh, Dawn's here. I'll come over. This is absolutely beautiful, isn't it? And like Murray, I could see that printed on the wall. I mean, I know it's printed, but
It's just a white fronted tern at Sumner, and it's could be natural history, except I put a little zig up the background at the bottom just to give it a bit more interest. What do you call a tool? No, not a swirl, just, I don't know, just move the cursor up. Yeah, in Photoshop. Otherwise, it's just the sky behind it.
great. And that was just down in Sumner, a local bird. It's beautiful. Who else is here, Ian, that we can talk? Kelly, you must be over here. Would you like to come up and tell us what you found here?
Thank you. This was on the Twizel weekend. I found this little bit of tumbleweed in a bush, and I thought this was really nice. And I probably walked around with it for about half an hour, thinking, how, where, what am I going to photograph it against? And that's the bonnet of our wee Suzuki. And I just thought, yeah, and we'll make it the high key. They were wanting a high key picture for the weekend. You know, we had to do a high key and minimalism and a couple of others. Yeah, and so that's my little tumbleweed on the Suzuki bonnet.
That's right, a good example of the author adding to. And yes, it's yours too. I think you may be last.
Oh, thank you. That's beautiful Lake Camp, and that was just after it snowed. How long ago, Brian? Yeah, a month or so ago, and we went up for a drive, and we were actually on our way back out, and it was getting close to sunset, and just stopped and went, oh my God, got the camera out, and oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Beautiful shot. And thank you very much, Ian, for the printing.
Thank you very much for sharing that, Kelly. Well, isn't that great? It's lovely to hear a little bit of the backstory with these beautiful images, and it would be lovely for all of us to see the actual printed image when they do return. So thank you all for sharing that with us tonight. So now just to finish off for the evening, competition closing dates, just a couple more notices. 24th of August, which is today, is the PI. The next PI is due at just before midnight tonight, so if you haven't got that in, just make sure you burn the oil at the other end before you go to sleep tonight. And so the next meeting we've got 31st of August. Alistair, do you know what's being set up for the 7 o'clock session yet? Okay. Okay, well maybe we could watch the YouTube. Anyway, well, something will happen by 7 o'clock next week. And at 8 o'clock next week, Newell is going to be explaining the honours system And also we'll see the end of the month MDC, which is the end. So is there anything else to talk about tonight that... Oh, yes, that's the 31st, isn't it? Is that right? If 31st, it's due? Yes, your natural history. That is a PI, and it has special rules and regulations, so make sure you read those rules up. Oh, there is one other thing I've got for you tonight, if you'd like one of these. Just to encourage your photography, I've had a fantastic time over the summer photographing monarch butterflies, and I grew a lot of plants, and I've just harvested the seeds tonight. So in here is half a teaspoon of monarch butterfly plant, you know, the milkweed. So if you would, 2 hands there, I should auction these. There are 8 envelopes here, so if you would like to spread those milkweed around, the monarch butterflies are having such a hard time surviving at the moment. They need all the help they can get. So if you'd like to grow these in your garden or a few pots, take an envelope and let's have them all over Christchurch. I'll just leave them down here so you can take one later, Jane. Settle. So again, thanks for coming, everybody, and thanks all you guys at home for being part of the evening. I'd like to thank Dennis for opening and closing tonight, Alan and Dennis for meeting and greeting. On the sound desk tonight, we've got Andrew and Gordon. Thank you very much for that. Ian Harrison, did you have any helpers there? Ian, yes, and Alistair, thank you for putting the projection together. Ian Walls, thank you very much for the Lens Baby introduction next door. And John and Nicola for presenting, making sure that, you know, the presentation could go ahead tonight. John, have we got supper? It is supper tonight. Thanks, John, for that. So I'll just take leave of the stage now and pack up everybody, and we'll head through there, have a cup of tea and a good night. But first, Dawn has got something. Distort. Right. Oh, all right. Distort in Photoshop. Have a play with that and see what you can do with the water to give it that marbled effect. I've got it. Thank you. It's amazing how it comes to you eventually, isn't it? Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. It was lovely to have you here, and we'll catch up with you next week. Safe trip home.